Welcome back on the AM show. We get into our big stories now. And of course, we've set the tone for the conversation we're about to have. Poison for Gold, the second part of it, aired yesterday. Today, we continue our conversation on Erastus Asaridonko's Poison for Gold documentary. Now, the second piece highlights how health officials are reporting alarming health concerns among residents in communities whose sources of water have been polluted by illegal mining. Now, tests conducted by health officials have revealed levels of heavy metals in the rivers and water bodies, casting a shadow of uncertainty over the fate of these affected communities. We'd hear from some stakeholders on the show. Joining us for a conversation, Professor Emmanuel Ahin. He's an applied geologist at Dean School of Geoscience at the UENR. And there's also Daryl Bosu, Deputy National Director of Arusha, Ghana. Gentlemen, a very good morning to you. Thank you for joining the conversation.
Yeah, thank you.
Is that Prof?
Yes, this is Professor Ahin, yeah.
Okay, Daryl, are you with me?
Good morning, Benjamin. I can hear you.
Great.
And
Good.
Thanks for having us. Yeah.
It's a pleasure to have both of you. So here we are. Of course, in recent times, we've heard a number of things said about the blue economy and everything in between. The Vice President. We'll eventually get there. But I'll start with your view on the second part of Poisoned for Gold that we've seen. And here's where maybe we have to situate it forcefully. When Erastus became Journalist of the Year and came into this studio, he said that for 9 years he had been pursuing stories on the back of Galamsey. And for him, the grim aspect of it was that practically nothing had been done from the powers that be. From this angle, how did you appreciate this second leg of the documentary? I'll start with you, Prof.
Well, thank you very much, and greetings to your honorable viewers and listeners. What Erastus is saying, looking at what is pertaining in the environment, I think everybody will agree with Erastus, because if out of all the work that he has done, if we have paid particular attention to them, we would have seen differences when he started and where he has gotten to now. So I will concur with Erastus' statement that nothing so far had been done.
Is that a reflection, basically, of where we are? In fact, things have deteriorated even further. What does that mean for you, Prof?
Well, what it meant is that there is a looming danger for everybody in this particular country called Ghana, because our land has been polluted so much that you cannot trust anything that you eat, you cannot trust anything that you drink. And remember, what you eat, what you drink, make you whom you are. And if you are taking in something that you don't have confidence in, out of ignorance, we eat what we eat. So there is a looming danger for the country called Ghana.
Let me come to Daryl Bosu. How did you appreciate the second leg of this documentary, Daryl?
Yes, thank you, Benjamin. And I think when we see how the devastation has been, I mean, this issue, the signs have been on the wall, and it's sad that we have seen this over and over again, and Erasmus.
We appear to have lost Daryl Bosu, and we'll try to work the connection to get him back on the line with us. It's all about the second installment of Poisoned for Gold, put together by our very own Erastus Asaridonko, giving a second layer of just how much we're killing ourselves. You know, water bodies across the country are being tested, and the levels of mercury, arsenic, among others, in them are simply incredibly troubling. But guess what? We are getting our water sources from all of these same water bodies. It's taken quite a toll on the cleansing or purification of water by the Ghana Water Company Limited. A long time ago, years ago, they told us they had moved from some of the basic treatment measures they were using to using polymers, which are now more expensive, and that cost must be translated. But how did we get here? And what is the way out? I'll come back to you, Prof. So as an applied geologist, looking at where we are and how far we have come on the negative stratum of things, is there, honestly, to ask you, is there any hope? Because we've also been told by experts that even if we stopped all activities in Galamsey, it could take us about 100 years, a century, for our water bodies to get any semblance of what they used to be. So with the water bodies the way they are they dead? What is the state from where you sit?
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, I want us to broaden what we are discussing beyond just the water. Life in general depends on three fundamental things. One of them is the food that we eat. The other is the water that we drink. The third is the air that we breathe. All these things had been imparted upon based on the activities that we do. But the question that you ask, whether there is hope for us, in life, if you realize you are making mistakes and you identify that mistake, that is the first solution to what would have happened to you addressing it. So, with Elasto's documentary that had opened our eyes on what is happening, particularly with our water, and then with the food that we eat, I think there will still be a hope, because we'll be able to identify the hotspots of where these problems are coming. And as our elders always say, prevention is better than cure. So if we can prevent these things from going on, then Ghana can have the hope that you are talking about. But if we allow things to go unattended to, then I'm afraid we are doomed. Before the word doom, okay.
But even as you say this, how are we going to be able to do that? You have seen the different attempts. The Interministerial Committee on Illegal Mining was set up, Operation this, Operation Galamsey, this and that. Everything, practically everything, at least seemingly, has been done. Of course, sometimes we know the real political backing is not there. It's just lip service that is paid to it. And sometimes the politicians themselves are mired in it. We've seen the Professor Frimpong Boateng report, among others. So what will it take? That I guess is the thrust of my question. What will it take to start dealing with Galamsey?
Well, very good question. If you are sick, you go to the hospital. You don't go and see the mechanic. This problem falls in the purview of the geoscientists. They understand the earth. They know where the minerals are. So if people are doing something irresponsible, those are the people that must be contacted first. It is not an issue of using bow and arrow to stop what is going on. The people in the field who are devastating our land and causing serious chemical contamination that nobody will be able to run from requires the expertise of geoscientists to analyze the situation. What is missing in these people that are doing this? Can we guide them to do the right thing? Remember, last year I made a presentation on my inaugural, the green gold transition, and I prescribed a number of ways that we'll be able to use to stop the menace that is going on in this mineral industry. But as we speak, nobody had even contacted me as to how we'll be able to address this canker. So,
and why do you think that is? Why do you think that is?
Hello?
Why do you think that is? After all this work and everything, no one even bothers to get in touch with you. Why do you think that is? Is it because of the lack of will?
Well, I can't say it's a lack of will, but I don't actually know what the problems of Ghanaians are. When you have a problem and somebody bring to your doorstep ways to address that problem, and then you don't bother to find out whether those solutions prescribed will work for us, I really don't understand. The goodwill that you're talking about, well, maybe it's something more than goodwill.
Well, let me also bring in Daryl Bosu, who rejoins the conversation. Daryl, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Benjamin. I'm sorry I went off the line. Sorry.
Right. You were making a point on your initial assessment of this latest end of Poisoned for Gold. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much. As I was saying, I was actually just reflecting on the fact that this issue has been going on for a long time. We have seen our rivers being polluted right from 2016 coming. We saw a lot of actions the government promised to put in place and all of that. But unfortunately, we have seen the situation get worse and worse. I recall somewhere in 2016, these issues of serious water shortages hit the country, particularly in Accra and in some areas. We were eventually able to trace it to a blockade of the Galamsey River and some activities of some mining activities. This continued 2018, 2017, more rivers were polluted, and even to the extent that the Ghana Water Company Limited came out to say that we needed to be very careful because they do not treat our water, our rivers and the water we drink for heavy metals. They only take away the heavy solubles, the solubles that are in there, the dirty water and all of that, but the heavy metals they do not treat for them. So that means that it doesn't matter that your water is coming out very clear, it could likely be polluted with heavy metals. And this is an issue that we cannot gloss over because it's really serious in terms of the health implications. I think Professor Sampene's work has really shown to all of us that we are all at risk. Our food systems are at risk. And the fact that our government continues to even give us more concessions, allows for some of these mine activities to happen around rivers and streams, tells you that our government has not prioritized the health of Ghanaians as they are very much focused on mining and just mining and taking what is in the land without due diligence to people's health and our food system. So it's quite unfortunate, and you can agree that by what Irato has said, that it's just the business as usual. We are just interested in getting the gold quick. We don't care about anything else. And that's the very unfortunate situation we find ourselves as a country.
I was interacting with Prof earlier, and I told him, I mean, we're all aware the matter has gone from bad to worse. But the point is, do you foresee in the near future that it's possible to even reverse this trend? And what would it take?
Yes, Ben, I think there is evidence to show that this can be fixed. But it will take a lot of time. And it must start today, not tomorrow. Because while we are really thinking about when can we start doing this, already we are all exposed. I mean, take the food you eat. And I was recently in a program and somewhere, and one doctor was talking about, they did some analysis of heavy metal contamination of tilapia. And all Ghanaians like tilapia. I mean, whether he likes or not, most people really like tilapia. And it's one particular fish species that is really susceptible to heavy metal contamination. I mean, it has very good functional gills, and so these things can get shoved in there So for those of us who even like who like tilapia head, we are supposed to be very careful with some of these things. And it tells you that, look, we really need to start taking action right now. Already we are exposed, but I think we don't really see that commitment to start dealing with this issue. It could take some 7 to 10 years, but we have to start now. And I don't see any signs on the wall now to see that we are really serious about dealing with this very canker that we are confronted with. Government is rather borrowing more and more money to rather, they're talking to the banks to help them with financing more illegal mining activities around rivers and streams. They are now creating mining hubs for people, areas with freshwater bodies like the Amanzule in the western region. Clean fresh water for the people is all being targeted. So it looks like there's more focus and attention on getting to the goal quickly more and more than really prioritizing the safeguard that the people who live on the surface of the land can also benefit from. And unfortunately, I wish that we could start an action now, but I don't see any commitment of this government to that effect. They are rather spending more effort inviting more miners into this country. It's just inviting, and that's where I don't really, I would say I don't have hope if we continue like this.
Coming back to you, Prof. Darrell, hold for me a bit. In terms of the leadership standpoint, from everything we've heard over the last, let's say, 10 years, what more do you think can be done? You mentioned, for example, the work you've done, it's been set aside. Professor Frimpong Boateng talks about the reports he's put there. In fact, the Attorney General, whoever put the report together, because we are told it wasn't the Attorney General himself, but the report stated that it was empty. The report on his report stated it was empty. If we have all of this happening, then you ask yourself, from the leadership perspective, do we need a new thinking leadership, or must we do things in a different way to compel leadership to act? Because in the end, leadership may get what they want from governance, but how about the ordinary people? Like Darrell mentioned, we all eat the tilapia and the rest. What is happening to us? The consequences will be borne by us, by our children, by generations to come. So where do you see us going on that front?
Thank you again for this particular question. Where do we go from here? What should the leadership do? Mining, as we know, started centuries ago. We never had issues serious with our environment until recently. So what I want to suggest probably to the leadership of the country is that we need to go back and look into the basic laws that allow people to get into mining. What I know is that where we're having these problems from January are from the small scale and then artisanal mining site. They are mining irresponsibly. Our law indicated that 25 acres of land should be given to Ghanaians to mine. And here they are supposed to use the local implements, pickaxes, sawzall, and shovels. And this 25-acre plot of land must be mined for about 5 years, depending on the capacity. The law did not indicate that people should use heavy moving equipment. We still give 25-acre plot of land to people, and then they use heavy moving equipment, meaning that the impact on the land will be big. The question I want to ask, have we reviewed the law? So, sending military people to the field to get these people out, I think is not the way to go. However, we need to start from the legal perspective. if we know that people are no longer going to use pickers, shovels to do this mining, which impact will be minimal, and they are going to use heavy moving equipment, then that law must be reviewed. And if heavy moving equipment are to be used, then we need to be very stringent on the environmental impact assessment that they do. They need to provide reports to the commission that regulates their activities before a mining lease be given to them. And they need to bring out environmental impact statement from the work that they are going to do, that if we mine, these are the things that we foresee will be the impact, and these are the things that we are going to do. Because if these people don't outline what they will do after mining, then we will continue to be in this particular state. So to answer this particular question, before I get to the technical aspect of it, the legal regime needs to be looked at, because that is what you will probe the people with. Now there is no baseline. You've given them 25 acres. You expect them to be there for 5 years maximum. Your team will be monitoring their activities within these 5 years. Unfortunately, now they are using heavy moving equipment. So the 5 years can be 2 weeks. By the time you get there, they are already gone. So how is your monitoring going to be effective? So my first suggestion is that we need to look at the law that allow Ghanaians to be in this particular sector of the industry. Thank you.
You spoke about the technical aspect. I'll come back to you on that. But for you, Darrell, as far as leadership is concerned, on the back of the same scenes we've seen over time, it doesn't appear we're making gaining any ground as far as illegal mining and all of that is concerned, and the devastation it is wreaking on our environment. But from the leadership perspective, what more can be done now and in the coming years?
Well, thanks a lot. I think there has been calls on government for a long time to really, like Prof said, relook at the small-scale mining regime. Just to add to what Prof said, one thing that is missing in this sector is the fact that whereas we are asking the large-scale mining companies, and because of the extent of devastation they create, to pay for the pollution they cause, the small-scale mining sector is not compelled by law to do that. And that needs to change. The reason why people, they quickly go for the gold and walk away is because there's nobody enforcing an obligation on them to restore the land when they have taken it. And so they can dig today, tomorrow they finish, they are gone. The community can hold them accountable. Sometimes even the Minerals Commission or EPA, nobody can hold them accountable. So I think that we need to make it compulsory for every small-scale miner. If you are no longer artisanal, if you are using excavators, heavy-duty equipment, you must also comply with paying for the pollution that you create. And this is the polluter pay principle. And this is all about, prior to people getting their permits and concessions, they need to pay some amount of money as deposit. And this is not about whether then how can Ghanaians get into this sector. No. Mining is a very destructive enterprise. And if you want to get into it, you need to be prepared to also pay for the pollution that you cause. It's not an enterprise where anybody can just pick up a pickaxe or rent an excavator and go start digging. No, it needs to be organized very well. Because right now we have all seen the consequences we put on Ghanaians if we don't deal with it systematically. And so I believe that leadership should start making sure that the small-scale miners also pay for the mess they are causing. And that is why we have not been very happy with the government of Ghana for going to the World Bank to borrow a loan of over $100 million just to rehabilitate land that has been destroyed by business mining companies. These are companies that went for concessions, they're businessmen. So why should they mess or destroy the land and we go and borrow money on the back of public and the taxpayers' money and then use that money as a loan to pay for business companies' pollution? I think it's not fair on Ghanaians. So if you are really serious about dealing with mining and even dealing with it from who can get into it and who cannot get into it, we need to prioritize making the polluters pay for the damage and the devastation they are causing. Until we do that, nothing will work for us.
And when the polluters are those in government themselves, like we've seen in many cases, what happens? And you are fully aware of what I'm talking about. What happens then?
Very much aware. And I think that is where we are trying to believe that let's take that power to even grant mining concession from the minister, and let's only make it solely an issue of parliament. And I think that even though the parliament must ratify some of these concessions, we are not seeing this happen as it should, because what we have seen is that there was this case of the minister providing what he calls a provisional concession or right before it goes to parliament. That shouldn't happen. And I think we are not working, we are not abiding by the laws that we ourselves have set for ourselves. I mean, the law is clear. Before anybody can get a mining concession or a permit, it should be ratified by parliament. So there shouldn't be any reason or excuse that, oh, my concession or my permit is waiting to be ratified, but I am on the field. I think we've taken a whole lot of things for granted. It shouldn't be possible for the minister to grant a provisional license before parliament ratifies these concessions. And then we need to also make sure that the full consent of communities where these mining activities are happening are really stopped before we do all of them. It shouldn't be a power that is so taken by the presidency, by the minister, to the extent that nobody has a say. I think we need to start with our laws. Our laws have been have given so much power to the executive and the ministers, so much that community voices don't matter anymore. All of these things would have been averted if we had listened to the communities, we had listened to the chiefs, and paid attention to the health needs of the people where this gold is also found. I think we've not done a good job balancing our other societal needs with the need for gold. It's not even with the want and greed for gold. We have not done a good job balancing. And that is where we need to take the power that is abusing this balance and give it back to the people.
Right. And it's crucial because that balance must always be found. Whatever you get from Mother Earth, you must find a way of regulating. Once you overdo it, you destabilize, that balance, and then problems arise. And that's exactly where we find ourselves. It breaks my heart sometimes looking at other countries and how they are preserving nature and how we are wantonly, brazenly destroying nature and by extension, ourselves. Which brings me to my next question, and I'll address that to Professor Paul Osei Sampene, Professor of Pathology at the KNUST. Prof, good morning.
Brother.
Right. From where you sit, we've spoken, in fact, that is why we captioned this poisoned for gold. We're poisoning ourselves just to get gold. But from where you sit, the cases you see, the things you have to deal with, the medical issues, how bad is it where we find ourselves and the effects that we're seeing?
Well, thank you so much. I'm sorry I couldn't join in via Zoom. I'm having some challenges here, network challenges, and so right. I couldn't do so by Zoom. But let me start by saying that honestly, I'm not interested in the politics of it, and so I will just go straight to what actually is happening as far as we are concerned. I'm talking about we, the humans, and then livestock, but in addition to our fishes and all those things. So that is exactly what I am interested in. Anything sort of that, I'm not interested. So, like you rightly said, the situation, as far as I'm concerned, and the few things or the little things that I've done in respect of humans, I feel that it's time we sit up as a nation. I wouldn't like to bring in any politicians. We as individuals, we as citizens, we should be able to sit down and say that enough of it is enough, and therefore will not allow few individuals who claim to be owners of this land, and sometimes you go and they will tell you that somebody says I have a prospective or prospecting license, another person gives another version of it, and therefore is able to do whatever mess they are doing, and that's where the problem is. The problem is quite enormous. Kidney diseases are on the rise. If you can see, a lot of mental issues among the youth is also on the rise, especially those who live around those Galamsey, so-called Galamsey sites. I would not even like to use Galamsey. I would say industrial mining. I would like to use that term, non-industrial, because they don't actually obey any rules, and that's where my worry is.
Are you suggesting then that we're suffering some levels of cognitive impairment as well on the back of being exposed to these elements from the environment?
Exactly. I have, but I mean, via your documentary, I think you saw, I think that Saridonko made clear. In fact, there are 3 boys in Bekwai, as we speak, the Ashanti region, who as a result of continuous inhalation of mercury, trying to extract gold with mercury, the vapor that he has inhaled has left this boy with cognitive impairment. Now this boy cannot write. He cannot eat all by himself. He cannot eat. He needs to be fed. In fact, 3 of them, and I don't know those who, in fact, these 3 were people who personally came to me to be helped. And I have to refer them to the appropriate places. Do you understand? And but we took blood samples to South Africa, and the level of mercury that was in their system, my brother, needs to be here to see. In hundreds.
Wow.
Oh, yes, in hundreds. And so you can see, probably he is very close to it, but the environment, those around, probably they will get, in fact, I'm telling you, research has shown that children or fetuses who are developing in their mother's uterus have the chance of having cognitive impairment when they for some reason, assimilate or digest mercury whilst in utero.
I mean, this is startling, and you have come face to face with this and seen what it does, what it is doing. You bring in the issue of mothers or pregnant mothers or lactating, whichever way, and how severe it is for their children. Because even if they are not pregnant, they've already been delivered of the children. Whatever they ingest or take into their systems goes through their bloodstream. They are also passing it on to their children via feeding them if they are using, the traditional method, breast milk.
Exactly so.
Are these cases getting higher and higher? Is there an uptick?
Well, as for another case going higher or reducing, I need to do a broader study on that. And as we speak now, I have very scanty data, which is quite representative enough, because if you look at the regions where I've selected these things from, it's quite representative. And so therefore, because I haven't done extensive studies, and in fact, following children, for instance, who have been born, probably from day one, you need to follow them up to about 6 years. And it's capital intensive. You need to follow these children to see how they are developing and their mental state and cognitive, all those things. In fact, their cognitive functions and all those things must be followed to at least for 5-6 years, where they would have entered school, and then you can actually see whether it is increasing or it has maintained or it is decreasing.
Before I go back to Professor Ahin, Professor Sampene, just indulge me here. So, for example, with those 3 youth that you encountered who actually came seeking help from you, looking at the concentration of mercury in their system, looking at how badly it has impaired their cognitive abilities, is there any way or possibility of a reversal, or does it mean when you get to a certain point, there's practically nothing that can be done for you?
Well, I think there could be something done, but the question is that, my brother, in Ghana, do we have the capacity? We don't. Absolutely, we don't. I haven't seen anywhere where one can easily go and have the blood cleansed of that. And in fact, it's very even difficult for the blood to be cleansed of these heavy metals. Look at the common dialysis machine. In Ghana, we don't have as many as possible, as where everybody can even walk into any hospital and tell the person that, look, this is the situation, and then you start going through the process of cleansing your blood as a result of accumulation of toxic waste and blood and water in your blood. And so therefore, you can imagine when you want to, if you have to extract mercury, I don't know what it's going to be like. I don't know. Seriously, I don't know what it's going to be like. But probably maybe somebody has an idea. But as far as I'm concerned, something must be done. We need to do something about it. And that something must be done now. We don't have to wait until our children grow up to have all manner of autism. All manner of autism or autistic characters and all those things. I wouldn't be happy that the future is going to be bleak.
Prof. Sampene, just hold for me, please. Indulge me. Let me bring in Professor Ahin one more time. You were talking initially, you wanted to get to the technical angle of this conversation. What would you like to share with us on that, in that regard? Hello, Prof. Are you still with us? Professor Ahin. We appear to have lost Professor Ahin on that beat. There were some technical angles he had spoken of that he had wanted to share with us. But let me bring in Daryl Bosu. So when it comes to all of this, then we start looking even beyond what we already know, because there are other advancements. Lithium, for example, has come into the fray, green energy. And then there has also been talk, while Professor Sampene has said that he doesn't want to address the political elements. In the end, it is the political actors, the policy makers, who will either make this work or not work. We see, for example, even if we look aside from lithium, on page 12 of the Ghanaian Times newspaper, let's build thriving blue economy. That's according to the vice president. According to him, developing and sustaining a blue economy is not just of economic importance, but also a moral imperative as well. But I ask myself, with our water bodies, now we are polluting so many of our water bodies, they are even affecting Côte d'Ivoire. So how moral have we been, and how can we even talk about morality going forward? Daryl, what are your reflections on that?
You raise some very critical issues, and unfortunately what we see with the government is that they like to shift the post quickly. I mean, we have been dealing with this menace of Galamsey and gold mining for a long time. It's not been addressed. The pollution keeps getting worse and worse. They are not focusing on dealing with it. The government has already jumped on to green minerals and lithium. And I was particularly sad to hear the minister, I think it was in China 2 to 3 weeks ago. And if you go through his opening remarks before that meeting in China, all the minister spoke about was about the benefit of business, the benefit of the gold industry. There was no statement whatsoever concerning the safeguard of communities, of people, as if the gold is and all the lithium and all the minerals they're talking about is just going to be taken out of vacuum. And this is where I see that the minister and the government have no good intention when it comes to taking our minerals and dealing with it. So now to hear the minister talk about blue economy, I always say that yes, they just like to add their voice to the fray in terms of the public, the populist issues that is out there for discussion. The global community is talking about the blue economy. We are talking about green economy. We are talking about green minerals, transition minerals. So they are just adding their voice to it. But a key aspect of this whole discussion, and that is where the issue of the morality and all of that comes in, is how just is this quest for green minerals, this quest for whatever we want to do, how just is the process? You can have all the gold, you can sign all the concessions and the permits. If the process by which you come by those concessions and the processes by which you give companies permits to go into community lands and mine, sometimes destroying the farms and also the surface rights of other people, if it is not just, then we shouldn't even be talking about the issue of morality there. I mean, it's just maybe a term that they put in their write-up to make it look really good, but really, we have not seen the government demonstrate that they really care about those aspects of our life. All they care about so far is the gold and the minerals, the lithium. I mean, it's sad. And for me, I mean, these statements is just talk. They just speak nicely, flowery talk, but no true commitment on the ground. So you usually will take it for a pinch of salt. And until we, the citizens ourselves, start really demanding serious commitment from these people, they'll keep taking us for a ride, unfortunately.
We can also talk about fisheries, and he says, in spite of the enormous benefit from our ocean, there is huge degradation occurring in our coastal landscape. And he says some of them are man-made factors and others from a number of other factors in there. We've also seen a depletion of our fish stock. For example, some fish species are gradually getting lost. The fish catch is going down. Of course, there's the bit of overfishing, but there's also the impact of illegal mining on our fish stock. Already, I don't know, but you buy fish, you see how expensive it has been. Fish that would have cost maybe 7 cedis just how many months ago or how many years ago now will cost you about 20 to 25 cedis. So this is impacting every aspect of our national life, and somehow it's not getting checked. I don't know at what point. And this is what brings me to my next question before I bring in Professor Sampene. These misleaders, as I tend to call them, are creating a problem for all of us. A problem we cannot run away from. We cannot be like country broke, country no broke. We day inside. Because because of what they enjoy, they get to live a different reality. We live our ordinary person's reality. Buy the things we buy. They may be able to afford to import. We can't import.
Yes.
In the end, so what will it take? Will it take a sort of rising up of individuals of goodwill, of the media, apart from everything we've done, of CSOs? Well, something like that, I don't know, because in the past, similar things have been done. What can we do at that level to bring about change, to as it were, force the hand of those who matter in this discussion?
I think these are very heavy questions to respond to, looking at our history. And I would say that I'm really looking for a day or a time in our development where we have leaders who think not only about the physical development of society in terms of building infrastructure, but who take the holistic development of our society into consideration. And here, prioritizing almost all the environmental services that support or drive our economy. So to a certain extent, I'm indicating that we need to have leaders who have, I would say, empathy, who think about the people. And if you think about the people, you ask yourself, what are the things that really are the first needs of the people? water, food, and clothing. And water, food, and clothing will make sure that every source of water in this country is protected. The food system, the access to food, growing food, buying food, no matter where it is gotten from, it is done in a way that is sustainable and will really sustain the health of people. And we need leaders, or we need people who will really reflect on all of this good balance of the need for this infrastructure industrialization with also the environmental aspect of our life, because it is these two that makes us whole. And that's how come if you look at the 17 sustainable goals, the environmental aspect of our lives is very much highlighted. Not less than 10 of them really look and speak to or connect with our environmental spaces. And I think it is important that we really reflect on this. Our leaders now are too focused on, property, and also on minerals and gold, to the extent that they don't care about our food system, they don't care about water bodies. And maybe as we go into this election, I think we really need to interrogate and ask our leaders, what is the vision for a green, sustainable future for Ghana and also for generations yet to come? If we don't see that clearly, and sometimes when we are asking these questions also, let's look at their works already and use that to really determine if these people can be trusted to really hold the fort for all of us. I think these are things that we really need to start thinking about. So far, we've not done well enough as a country when it comes to electing leaders. We vote based on political lines, look at how beautiful or handsome people are, and we don't pay attention to the ideology and the vision they have for this country. I think we've tried over a century of mining gold and all of that. Maybe let's look at other development pathways. Let's follow countries like Costa Rica. They decided, look, the mining is not helping us. It's destroying the livelihood of millions and millions of people, not just benefiting just 3 million as they say mining is benefiting, but millions and millions more of Ghanaians' lives are at risk. So let's look at really a development pathway that brings and allows people to develop everything else they have, to develop the tourism, to develop our water services, develop our water sports and everything. All our rivers in this country, it's just a nice way if you fly over Ghana right now. So, I mean, you wouldn't see true leaders really sit down for this to happen. We need to bring about a change. And I think in electing who becomes our leaders, we should let these things also inform some of the decisions that we make. And it will require a lot of education for this to happen. And I think that you can also help with this process.
Right. Hold for me. We'll be concluding in a bit, and I'll bring in Professor Sampene shortly. But just a few messages we've received. Joshua Chagweda says civil unrest doesn't work because the hardcore leaders of a demonstration get bribed. Some Aluta leaders get bribed with houses in Europe, so they don't sustain the demonstrations. Right. But I also spotted this comment, and I had to read it. Sandra Banafo says, so multimedia, are you people not ashamed? You have been showing videos of illegal mining for so long now, and you want people to tell us, and you people want to tell us that Erastus, who conducts these investigations, isn't interested in finding out the people who own these concessions so that he can publish their names to name and shame with proof, evidence. Other than that, these videos you are always showing are useless. You only enjoy showing these videos. That is poor journalism. Sit up. Thank you, Sandra, for that comment. But let me school you. I've noticed your trend of, and sometimes people think we don't pay attention. Sandra Banafo, you send in messages and they are always skewed in a certain direction. If you support this administration and what is going on, no problem. But can you be, I'm trying not to use a word that you might find abrasive. Can you be factual, logical in your thinking? We have put here the Ashanti Regional Chairman of the MPP. We have shown how he's mired in Galamsey. We've mentioned many names in government. We've discussed here the Professor Frimpong Boateng report. Aren't you being hypocritical with this comment you are passing about journalism and naming and shaming? I mean, if you want to remain in your corner and support whatever, that is fine for you. If you think the way things are going is good for you, you eat the same food that we are eating, drink the same drink we're drinking. That's up to you. But don't, without a conscience, get up and type some of these messages and put them here. Such lines of thought are part of the problem we're facing in Ghana. Professor Sampene, back to you. And I get passionate like this because sometimes this is a bit insulting when you see comments like this. It insults our intelligence, all of us. All of us, really. Prof.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
coming to you, Prof, I see you've already, you can take it from there. Such an abuse of our intelligence, as though we were fools. We didn't know what to think.
Well, this has been the issue all over. In fact, I have had my fair share of what this lady just posted to you. At a point, a politician who happens to be in government, this very government, called me and told me that what I'm doing is Photoshop. And he was lambasting me, saying all manner of things. But that is life. Sometimes you do things and then out of your meager sum, out of your life, out of the risk of your life, and somebody says somewhere and try to denigrate it and try to, as it were, lower your intelligence, insult your intelligence. But that notwithstanding, let us not, worry our head over those people and go straight to what is at stake at the moment. What is at stake at the moment is probably she may be suffering from one of those cognitive problems. Do you understand? He may be suffering from one of those cognitive problems because probably he doesn't know that what he's doing has to do with cognitive, malfunction. So that is what I would say about whatever she did.
As we gear up to wrap the conversation, just stay with me, Prof. We'll be done in the next few minutes. Daryl, I'd like to take your final thoughts, the way forward.
What I would like to say is that I think if our government really had a conscience and was really committed and interested in the lives of Ghanaians, we need to institute a national scale, I would say, investigation and medical support to all these mining-prone communities. We need to do this. We need to get to the bottom of this. So far, it's only the works of Professor Sampene and a few others that is really highlighting the issue. But I think this issue needs to be amplified at the national level. We need to get to the communities, do large-scale, I would say, clinical analysis, assessment, checks with all the people who are there, and make sure that Ghanaians are living a good life. I think we owe it to Ghanaians in these areas because they're taking the gold, and the government comes to talk about how much gold they are selling to the international markets and all of that. But what about the health of the people? I think there is no justice if we continue treating Ghanaians the way we are, by taking their gold and then leaving their water bodies polluted and their lands destroyed, and they now have to even spend money, buy sachet water before they can get water to even wash their clothing or even drink. So I think we owe it to Ghanaians to ensure that we don't let this thing fester anymore, and while doing that in the communities also, take steps to make sure that from now we stop all activities that is really putting our water bodies and food security at risk.
Thank you, Daryl, for those concluding comments. Before I go to Professor Ahin, let me go to Professor Sampene for your concluding thoughts. Professor Sampene, what would be your concluding thoughts? The way forward, what do you see? What can we do?
Oh, I believe that, like Daryl said, they should get effort by all that we do the right thing by letting people understand that money is good, but money does not solve all problems. You can solve some problems, but not especially when you are sick, especially in Ghana, where you don't have what it takes to resolve some of these medical issues. So when we are getting ourselves involved in those things, we should be very careful and make sure that, well, let me just chip in this. Recently, I chanced upon some friends who had come from China, were coming to conduct. I think they read some of my work and they also came to Ghana to do some. These are a group of students from China. Ghanaian was the correspondent author, but we had Chinese people who have come to Ghana to come and check our water bodies and the food around certain parts of Ghana. In fact, they had ethics approval. And when they did, the sort of things they saw in our water bodies and our plants, and then the soil and the food, my brother, I'll probably send you the paper and you read. I will send you the paper that was published. That was published recently. I will send it for you to read.
Please do.
So, yes, it is something that is so alarming and getting worse. People, we should sit up, please. I don't want to bring any politicians. I don't want to bring in people who, for some reason, are population. I don't want to bring in people who, for some reason, are doing what they want, their masters want them to do. But we, the poor ones, which of course we, the poor ones are the very ones who are suffering because who will not have the opportunity of having to buy tickets and go elsewhere to go and probably do dialysis when you need to have it done on quarterly manner. So therefore we have to sit up. We are majority, so we have to sit up and tell them that enough of that is enough.
Thank you, Prof, for those thoughts. Enough indeed is enough. Let's wrap the conversation with Professor Emmanuel Ahen. Prof, you have the final take.
All right. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, you cannot see me, but I'm just using my phone to end up. My attention to this problem, not just what Elastos had demonstrated, started in 2017 when said Kwam Boateng reported of renal cases in western and central regions. And then the allegation was that it's west in the mining district. So I went in there with my team to look at whether it is really true that the problem of renal issues can be attributed to the mining activities. So we carried out a research. Out of the research, we realized that statement was partially true. The mining operation contributes to certain pollution. But what our EPA checks from these mining operators are the additives, things that they add into their operations. But God created this earth in such a way that there are certain harmful minerals and elements that God doesn't want humans to have interactions with. So he kept them at depth. But through these operations of mining, we bring these minerals up to the surface. They get transformed and then move into the water body. So if we intend to address this problem, it shouldn't be just for the artisanal and small-scale mining operations. It must also include the large-scale, because their operations don't devastate the environment for us to see. Even we don't have access to their mine site. But as they dig, they excavate to get the gold out. The spoil from the earth that they put up there, which are minerals that are supposed to be at the deep-seated environment, change their location and then get exposed to water and air, and then they are transformed. So if you check most of the waters around the mine environment, you realize that they are acidic. And if they are acidic and then we drill our borehole, the pH will rather leach the heavy metals in the environment into the water. The water will be clean, but it might not be safe for drinking. So what we are looking now is we need to look at the whole problem holistically, not just the mining bringing this sort of effect. Construction, they all contribute to this. Farming we all contribute to this. But the devastation of the environment is what has made the mining a highlight for us to discuss now. I was talking about the technical aspect. If we look at the large scale, we don't have so much problems with them. But the small scales, we have problems with them. The differences between these two are just by size. Earlier, we were using pickaxes and shovels to do this work. Now we are using excavators, bulldozers, dump trucks, which is similar to what the large-scale people are doing. So why don't we change their modus operandi just by giving them the license because they have applied for it? Why don't we allow them to do some kind of prospecting, and after identify the area that hosts the mineralization, which they can mine at a profit, we then give them the mining lease for that particular area. Instead of allowing them to do this sort of wild goose chasing. If you've been to the field before, you understand what I'm talking about. They dig here, if they don't find, they move to the other. So they'll just be hopping, destroying the land, and then impacting negatively on the ecosystem.
Right.
So what I think should be the way forward is we don't have to give them 25 acres as we're giving to them. Burkina people came down to Ghana to learn what we are doing. And when they went, they rather gave 10 times the 25 acres that we are giving here so that people can use the earth-moving equipment. And they also make sure a report of exploration is submitted to animals. Their animals is like our Minerals Commission in charge of the small scale.
Right.
So that the technical people will look at it, and then if it's worth giving the license, it's given. I believe if we told this particular line, we'll be able to sanitize the environment.
Right.
I always tell people that gold, we need it because it's giving us good amount of money to help our GDP. But if we don't do it responsibly, then I'll be among the people who will demonstrate against the current act. But we can protect it, we can have it, we can do it, we can get the social license from the community if we decide to do the right thing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Prof, for joining the conversation. Of course, we must be responsible. That's why there's something called responsible mining. But so far, we've been very irresponsible. And the consequences are like a writing on a wall. They've already started biting. They're affecting the young ones being born. They're affecting our water sources, our land resources. And if we don't get a grip on the situation, like the likes of Sandra Banafo, who will put statements like she did, we shall all suffer the consequences. No one will be left out. Thank you for joining this conversation, but stay with us. Up next, we have a lot more. Before I introduce that, those who joined us on this conversation, Darrell Bosu, he is with Arusha, Ghana. Professor Emmanuel Ahin is an applied geologist and Dean of the School of Geoscience at the UANR. And then Professor Paul Osei Sampene, Professor of Pathology at the KNUST. Still to come, we're going to be talking about the Joy News EcoBank Habitat Fair. Today, we have two of our sponsors passing through. Stay tuned for those conversations coming up next on The AM Show.